Hi there, and welcome on the journey to transform culture. I'm Steve, and I'll be your guide. Well, folks, I hope you're having a fantastic day and an even better week. Folks, we're going to jump into this video. Not sure quite how I want to title it, but I guess we'll leave it open for now, and maybe as we go through the video, we'll find the title in it. I know what we want to talk about, so let's get started. But before I do, let me just preface that, of course, we jump in talking about, because it is the journey to transform culture is really about transforming all of culture, right? But where do we congregate the most? We congregate the most in our organizations because that's often where we meet on the most usual basis to form up as a team, right? But that doesn't mean that things we don't talk about won't apply to civic organizations, your churches, your family, friends, your relationships, all of it, because everything's connected, folks. All the dots connect and all the data connects, right? So use any nuggets that you find that is useful for you healthily, right, to elevate your lives, right, not to the contrary. And of course, always keep in mind, this is just a good conversation between friends and colleagues, right? So that we can open up doors and ask questions. It's never really going to be about me saying, this is the law. It really is about opening up a door, to open up discussion hopefully useful for you to jump off from this into other aspects and to develop it for yourself and to have your own realizations, your own personal and professional realizations. It doesn't matter individually or as a team. So with all that said, let's get started. So in 1935, Erwin Schrodinger, you probably have heard of Schrodinger's cat, right? And the simplified version is it's about superposition. Schrodinger, and this is obviously a theoretical thing, not literal. I don't think he actually literally put a cat in a box, okay? But he puts a cat in a box, right? So just imagine that. There's something, I think, toxic in the box, on this, thought experiment. And so the cat's in the box. So now the question is the cat alive or is the cat, deceased? Well, he was a physicist. Basically, this was to show that the observer effect and that the cat is neither alive nor deceased. And why is that? Because it hasn't crossed the threshold from one to the other because the observer is what then gives its classification, essentially, is what determines this, right? It's the observer effect. Now, if you've heard, or if you haven't, you can look it up, the double slit experiment and others, where some of this is kind of shown, right? Which is actually quite amazing to consider that Schrodinger's, observations in physics actually played themselves out later in experimentation. But why am I bringing it up? Well, I'm bringing it up mostly as a metaphor, okay? Because I'm starting out this video here, but then we're going to go to the big board. And I'm just going to kind of draw you a picture, if you will. Because if you think about it, anything to do with transformation for yourself, personally, professionally, organizationally, all of it, there is this, think of, is anything static, right? Is anything ever, frozen in time, right? The cat, do we know? Is it alive? Is it deceased? We don't know, right? But your organization, the observer effect does come into play, right? Because of why? Because the fact we can look at our key performance indicators, we can look at other metrics, we can look at all these things, and they tell us what? That's our observation, right? And they're telling us, hey, we're getting better, we're getting worse. We're getting better, we're getting worse, right? We're kind of stable, but we're getting worse, and so on, right? So our observer effect, because why? We track the data. That is part of our observation, right? We're observing as we go our performance, right? So we know that's a truth. We know that there's an observer effect, right? But also that observer effect as well plays a part when it comes to us performing. actually performing, not like looking at stats a month or a quarter later or even a week later. But that if somebody's watching somebody perform, they perform better, right? And I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's another scientist that proved this out. Okay, so there's observer effects that are always going on, right? But who's the number one observer for you? You are, right? You're a supervisor, you're a manager, you're CEO, you're all of it. You know, anybody in the decision chain of leadership that you work for, essentially, and then even yourself if you work for yourself. But they observe how you perform. But who really observes everything that you have going on in your workflow? You do. So who's the expert actually about what you do? You are, right? So there's this observer effect also with what you do. So I guess you could say, using the Schrodinger cat as a metaphor, if we're performing in one degree and we want to get better, there's some things we have to acknowledge about ourselves. And this is where it gets, there's some, psychology and sociology mixed in here too, right? But for the most part, you are the primary observer in what you're doing, and then you're, the controlled areas and tasks and responsibility and oversight and all these things. But within you also, there are things going on. This is why I brought up the psychology and sociology, right? And while we're not going to dive deep into those things, I'm going to go to the board and just kind of draw a picture, just kind of bring this out, because from a visual, I guess from a mental visual perspective, to see what you're dealing with. Now, I don't dive into the Schrodinger's cat thing so much for my book, but I do talk about some of these other things that we're going to talk about, or that I'm going to get into here in a minute. So I'm going to meet you over at the board, and in a blip, and we're back. Okay, so we're back here at the big board. Just wanted to show, just real basics stuff, just to get you to kind of think about some things in a different way and kind of challenge yourself, especially when it comes to transformation. Look, folks, I'm not going to sugarcoat, some transformation is difficult. You're going to go through difficulties and rough patches, but it's worth it. And so let's just talk about some of these real essential areas here. So we're doing improvement events and mapping out our processes. We'll have current state. Sorry, my box is kind of a box. and then you've got future state, right? And, right? So there's the way, how things are working for you now, personally, professionally, and otherwise, how they're working for you now. And then there's the future state, what you want to get to. Now this, this is often where, goal, this is a goal, an objective, right? And a goal or objective. This is also where vision comes from. If we're talking about vision for, and I guess say vision is a little more static, but the vision is a motivator to go there, right? So vision is considerably more lofty. It's your vision. Oops, got it off camera there. But anyway, vision is considerably more lofty. So lofty that it's out of the frame. Anyway, it's not super important. Just understand future state, current state. Okay, that's pretty simple stuff, right? But this is also you as a human being in your life too, right? This is you living your life, doing your thing. And so this is your current state, and then these would also be your personal and professional goals, right? Where you want to be. Now, these also could be, there could be some material things in here too, right? You want to become, well, let me first start off, there's personal development and, improving your health and emotionally and physically and all these things, your relationships, building on your relationships. But it also might be material things. It might be home, might be a car, you might want to have a better, bigger home for your family. a more reliable car or a better car for yourself, things like that, a little bit of, security in the bank, all that kind of stuff, all part of where you're moving to. But this is also, don't want to forget, those are the material things. I got to put those in there, right? But this is your emotional. Let me do it like this. I'm going to use this. Your emotional IQ, your actual IQ. You want to get smarter, right? You want to develop your intelligence, learning. Your physical, right? You want to stay in physiological or physical. You want to stay in shape, better health, all that, right? And moral, right? That's a little bit more reflective of, say, accomplishments and your position potentially, or maybe you want to take part and be a leader, right? And you want to be a leader in your community. You want to do different things. All these fall together. Some of these are maintaining, but and part of our current state, but you may want to grow these things, right? And this would represent, now, this isn't to say that every day I got to be sprinting up an 88-degree incline, no, it just means a general transformation of your life, right? Okay, so there's that. But an interesting thing, and this is where it kind of comes back to that symbolism. You're the cat in this box, okay? You're in this box, all right? And you want to get here in any area, any particular area or all areas, doesn't matter. And you want to get there. But what's going on inside of you, there's this interesting thing going on, okay? Interesting thing that's going on within you and your team, individually or as a group, doesn't matter, that you're having to deal with. And that is your pursuit you want this goal. You want to achieve these goals, and you want to, aspire to and get there. So internally, you're thinking and you're feeling, oh, I really want that. That's something I really want to do, right? So that's, we're going to use, you want to get to a singularity. Now, you're never going to get fully to singularity. That's just like saying that you'll ever attain and reach every goal in your entire life. There's going to be something that we don't achieve while we're here on planet Earth, okay? But you can achieve plenty. Well, it's up to you. But perfection doesn't really exist, right? That's the whole idea. But that is the pursuit of singularity. You're going toward, you're pursuing excellence, right? That's like excellence. Excellence isn't an arrival destination. Excellence is a road, okay? And this is the road, folks. But here's the kicker, and these are the things that are going on inside of you, is you're, at the same time, while you're pursuing singularity, you're having to deal with entropy, okay? I know this is maybe a little messy, but apologies for that. But, and entropy, it's going this way. Entropy is, there's a reason why I had it going against you while it's opening up as you go, okay? There's a reason for that. This is symbolic. It's kind of working against you, entropy, right? Because entropy doesn't want you to achieve singularity, right? So it's essentially, you spill that milk, it's not going to unspill itself back into the carton, right? Into the box. You spill a bunch of marbles, same way, right? Entropy is that. It's chaos, essentially. That if you do nothing, if there is no control, then entropy will ensue. Entropy will take your current state down, okay? And your current state will get down here, okay, if entropy wins this battle. You're in a battle. Now, this battle is internal to you, but it's also internal to your team, but it's also external to you and to your team, okay? It's actually a physical thing, right? Prices go up, the economy goes down, things in the economy, prices go up. Those are things that actually materially and physically are working against you, right? There may be sentiment working against you, right? But then that's external. And then there's internal. There's the things working against you. It might be self-doubt, right? It may be, your confidence may not be high. You may be confident, in some of the things that you want to grow in. That's why you want to grow, because you want to become more confident, right? But we don't start out that way. It just doesn't work like that. And we can start out that way, but what if, I'm past 50. So what if I wanted to become a musician right now? There's nothing that says I can't do it, but the likelihood isn't necessarily there. And unless, and I might go, oh, I can't sing. I mean, my voice isn't that great. So it's like, yeah, probably not going to happen. But that doesn't mean it couldn't happen. It just means that I kind of have some self-doubt there, right? Admittedly, right? So what do you think the likelihood is? It's going to be here. Why? Because internally, right? Internally, it's just not, high in my brain. But if it was my goal, if it was my, hey, I'm going to do this, I don't care. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to get voice lessons, whatever. Then I could turn that around, right? So you get to control. You get to control this. But entropy is working against you. But the whole idea of entropy is chaos, okay? So while you may be trying to pursue this, entropy is pushing back, right? Pushing back. These are people. This is yourself. This is all of it. It's pushing back on you. So this is when I say, and I don't sugarcoat it, is transformation isn't easy, right? The work of transformation, this is it, folks. Transformation, just like excellence, is a journey. Okay, transformation, you will never be fully transformed. Okay, you will reach plateaus, and then you will grow some more, and then you'll find more, right? And you'll just keep doing this. So this is what's going on inside of you, essentially. But I use the Schrodinger cat situation just to basically say, look, folks, all of us are in a box, right? And who are you? Are you an advocate? Are you an advocate for yourself and others, right? Are you an advocate for self and others? Or, right, are you, I won't say enemy, but are you the opposition? Are you an op? Or are you an op? I should probably do that in red, right? Are you an op? Are you in opposition to that, right? For yourself and others. So we can be a little bit of this in ourselves. We do have to battle ourselves. And it doesn't to say that this is constantly going to be because somebody's working against us, although it can be, right? Although it can be. This is a dangerous, slippery slope when we're dealing with civilian organizations, is if you're not on the same page and if you don't see how the dots connect and how all of us are connected together, when any one of us thrive, that helps all of us thrive. When we don't have that realization and that awakening isn't there, then we're essentially frozen within that box, okay? We're frozen within that box because why? We can fear these things. We can fear people working against us. We can fear the unknown. We can fear, and these are, subconscious, but also subconscious within us, right? You're in superposition. You're frozen. We don't know. You don't know if you're gonna go up. Are you going this way? Are you going that way? Now, when you're frozen, this is complacency. Okay? See if I can fit it on here. I know it's super messy, but it's all right. You get the idea. You can hear my words. You get the idea. If you're frozen, you're being complacent, right? Probably spelled complacent wrong. But anyway, frozen, you're being complacent, right? And not necessarily for nefarious reasons, right? It may be you're caught in the middle, right? You're Schrodinger's cat. You're neither alive or deceased. You aren't living your best life, not for for yourself as an individual, but also for your organization, for your team, right? Because if you're not doing that for yourself, do you think you're helping your team? No, you're not. So what does that mean? That means you have to have an awareness. You need to, and this is why I'm doing the video, so that you have a self-awareness to this, so that when you're going and you're getting together with your team, that you're just not showing up and just punching a clock and filling a seat and doing some work and going home and dispassionate, because then you're going to be right here. Now, all of that said, it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. Some of the forces, there are forces out there. We've got other obligations. We got family. We have friends. We have things we're involved with, or kids, you might be running them to practice and doing the things and studying with them and, getting tutoring and all the things that, everything. Been there, done that, have the t-shirt, the sweatsuit, and the whole thing. So understand. But that's kind of working against you. But you have to keep in mind, folks, is that you can't let that stuff stop you. You have to see the vision that you have for your life, the goal and objective that you want for your own personal life and for that of your team and your organization. Now, if you don't care about your organization, this is how you know you're not in alignment with your organization. But just like any relationship, really, if you know that you're not in alignment with their goals and objectives, then you're not even going to try. You're not going to try because you don't care. And so if you're going to get paid to be complacent, some people will. Some people will just sit there and be happy to be paid to be complacent, never really moving the needle up much, okay? But this isn't just the broader team. We're also talking about owners and leaders, right? Are you investing in your team? Are you doing all the things, the due diligence, right? Are you developing your team, right? All the things. Are you doing all the things to elevate, to achieve your goals and objectives? If you're not doing all the things, you're also frozen, okay? And if you sit frozen long enough, it doesn't take much before complacency, before this frozen complacency turns into, well, we didn't care. Next thing you know, we might have, quality issues, productivity, and then over time, complacency turns into, right? And that's where you end up. You end up way down here. And look, folks, the national stats don't lie. $5.5 trillion in waste for all U.S. businesses, that's a lot of money laying on the floor. And I've tracked back on my videos, and I've done papers and shown the stats and charts and graphs and the whole thing. So you can see where the different sectors are struggling. Rare are any companies really best in class. Do you think you're going to be best in class if any members of your team don't really kind of have a basic understanding for themselves, right? To develop themselves and the forces, like we all know that there are forces working against us. We don't need to have a victim mentality about this, but we do need to understand, hey, there's things I need to push against if I want good outcomes, right? And I don't mean, and I mean push in a positive sense, right? We want to push ourselves, right? And same thing with leaders. You want to push yourself. You need to push yourself to get engaged with your team, do your Gemba walks and do all the good stuff so that when you're out there as one whole team, you understand this. And if you get a feel for this, then you're more apt to, even visually, you're more apt to have an ascending path, right? Being on an ascending glide slope, okay? All right, hopefully you get the idea. I know it's super messy, but if you step back, super messy, but if you just kind of look at it and run it back if you need to, but I think what you can understand is entropy is natural. You don't have to do anything for forces to work against you. The weather will work against you, right? If you do nothing, nature will work against you, okay? This is why we have to do something, right? We have to do something if we want to achieve our goals and our objectives, right? If we want better and thriving lives, we can't sit back and wait for somebody to give it to us. Why? Because look, we don't know. Are we progressing? Are we degressing? Digressing? We're clearly not demonstrating that if we're stuck in a box. So we have to get out of our boxes, folks. That's what I'm here to do, help you get out of your box. Okay. All right, folks. Hope you're having a great day. Remember to hit that good green domino 3 to 5 times a day or more to uplift, motivate, inspire, and just encourage one another. When you do this, not only open to transform culture, but you're transforming your own life. Remember, though, you can't transform anything on the outside if you're not willing to transform on the inside. Super important. And I don't know what the title of this video will be, but hey, let's get out of our box. How's that? Let's all just decide to get out of our box and make our, transformative, climb. All right, folks, have a great day. Hit like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, we'll talk to you later.